Spells can do anything in Baldurs Gate 3. You attack, you heal, and you sheep. Today we're going to go through the best spells for spellcasters in Baldurs Gate 3. Let's go! Let me know your favorite spells in the comments, and I'll say here that there is an insane amount of spells in Baldurs Gate 3, and each has its own actual use, so you might gravitate towards other spells than I do, but this is a pretty general list across the board for any type of spellcaster to succeed. But before we get into that, this video is sponsored by LightMe and their new LightMe Fantasy 3 TV backlight kit. LightMe reached out to me and asked if I was interested in testing out their new backlight kit, and I honestly jumped at the chance. We've actually been looking for a lighting solution for our TV so I can spice up my terrible Instagram content. Go and follow me, by the way. And the LightMe Fantasy 3 literally does that like in waves. What's great about this device is that it'll sync the lights to the image on the TV. So I hooked it up to my PlayStation 5 for Jedi Survivor and to the Switch for Zelda. And I mean, for Zelda, I was honestly blown away at how cool the depths look, like how the red shows on one side of the screen and how the light like burst when you throw down a bright bloom seed. It looks fantastic. It also works with PCs. I set up my ROG Ally to sync with Baldurs Gate 3 and The Witcher, and it honestly works great. The setup process is really easy as they have specific kits to match your TV size. So I just told them my TV size, and then the lights come pre-configured so that they will actually be the right size for your TV. They even have little clips to ensure that the adhesive of the light bar actually stays connected, which is a huge issue for adhesive things like this. The LightMe also supports 8K at 60 Hz and 4K at 120 Hz, so you don't have to worry about having a pass-through that doesn't support that or HDR. I was honestly blown away at how well the lights work, and it's definitely become a staple in our living room, both for watching TV and playing games. If you want to try out the LightMe Fantasy Kit, you can use my promo code NorZZa5 for an additional 5% off. Links in the description. Thanks LightMe for sponsoring this video. Let's start with the best cantrips, and we're going to start out with the best cantrip in the game, and that is Eldritch Blast. Now, Eldritch Blast allows you to deal 1d10 damage of force damage to targets, and at level 5 you gain an extra beam, and 11 you gain an extra beam as well. So it essentially becomes sort of like a mini magic missile in a way because it gets the extra beams, and as a warlock you can add your charisma modifier to these beams as well as other effects based on the decisions you make as you're leveling up. So Eldritch Blast can be cast as many times as you like because it doesn't require a spell slot, and it can essentially do up to just like 20 damage if you crit with it with a roll on a 10, or even 30 once you hit to like level 11. That's not including any of the charisma modifiers or any other modifiers like that. It's a fantastic cantrip for warlocks and any other class if you wanted to spec into this, say with your feats or something like that. Next is Vicious Mockery, which is a bard focused cantrip which deals 1d4 damage of psychic damage, which isn't the main reason you want to use this. It's more for receiving the disadvantage on attack rolls that a targets get if it passes its check. Now this is great for, say, just using this basically on every turn on targets that, you know, maybe they are, you know, a high damage target that, let's say, a boss or something, and you want to avoid taking damage from them. Having them have disadvantage on their attack rolls is huge. It's also beneficial to, say, counteract the reckless attack of a barbarian like Karlach for something like that. Shillelagh will imbue your staff or club with nature's power, giving it an additional 1d8 plus wisdom modifier of bludgeoning damage to the attack rolls. This is also a bonus action, so you can cast this and then use your action to attack in the same turn just for that extra damage that you get off from it, so it's really valuable in that regard. And just like some solid fallback options, like especially for the wizard, Firebolt, Ray of Frost are both pretty okay. Ray of Frost probably gets a little bit of an edge because it lowers the target's movement speed, though Firebolt often does a little bit more damage, but that's sort of up to you if you're looking for just some fallback options. The best offensive spells we'll talk about now, and Chromatic Orb is definitely a must-have. Now, this can often seem misleading because it just says it'll either do thunder damage or you can pick the damage type, and the damage amounts aren't that high. You can upcast it with a higher spell slot, but the real reason that this is good is actually because it can allow you to avoid enemy resistances because you can cast it as any elemental type. So say that the target is immune to acid damage, right? It's got high resistance, then you could cast Chromatic Orb as fire, or it's immune to thunder and you can cast it as cold, what have you, right? It gives you that elemental damage type flexibility, and it creates a surface on the ground. So say, for example, if you throw some grease down, put some fire on there, you can then blow up that fire, or you could even use cold to create some sort of like ice on the ground that enemies could slip on. Moving on to Magic Missile, this is again a staple for any of these casting classes. Now this will send out darts of magical force that will deal force damage to the targets, depending on how many projectiles you put out, and if you upcast it, there's more projectiles, and this will always hit. The damage will obviously be different depending on the roll, but you cannot miss with Magic Missile. That's what makes it so strong. Cloud of Daggers is a great area denial spell that will conjure a cloud of spinning daggers that last for 10 turns, and anyone that is inside the whirlwind will take 4d4 slashing damage each turn while they're in that area. So say if you can set up like a choke point and put this down and then have everyone sort of like walk through it, or even just stand in it, it'll deal heaps of damage. Moonbeam functions basically exactly the same as that, except with Moonbeam it's a bit more damage as it's a 2d10s, and you can actually move Moonbeam. It's a druid spell, so it's a little bit harder to get, say if you wanted to go down that route, but Moonbeam is also a fantastic option, and even if the target passes its save, it'll still take half of its damage. Fireball is my favorite spell, and that's all I want to say about that. No, but it's like, what Fireball is like a big AoE spell. It deals an insane amount of damage if you buff it in various ways, which we talked about in the wizard video. It can do heaps of damage, and it is great, and I like blowing things up with Fireball. Okay, moving on. Ice Storm is also good. Now, Ice Storm is sort of like the ice variant of Fireball. Ice will crash down and deal damage. It'll also create an ice effect on the ground that enemies can slip on. And defensive spells. Now, these are a little bit like harder to sort of cover because there's not heaps of them, right? Like you've got the healing spells like Healing Word, which will allow you to heal a target. Now, this won't heal the target for heaps, but it's better than Cure Wounds, as Cure Wounds is a melee spell, so you have to be in melee range, and not all of your, say, support characters will be in melee range, so Healing Word gets the sort of the value there a little bit more. You've also got Bane, which is probably one of the best defensive spells, as you can target up to 3 creatures and give them a 1d4 penalty to attack rolls and saving throws. So a little bit like how earlier we were discussing Vicious Mockery, how it gives disadvantage on attack rolls. This operates in a similar way in that it lowers the target's attack rolls, so hopefully there's a more chance that they will hit. Aid is also great to bolster your allies, to give them not only health but also increase their hit point maximum. So you can do this, say, before a fight starts, increase their overall hit points, so then you've got more health that they have, you've got more health to heal. Shield of Faith increases one character's armor class by 2. Anytime you can do this is also valuable, because the higher the armor class, the less chance they are of being hit by those attack rolls. Let's say you've casted Shield of Faith on a character, and then another one of your characters has casted Bane on another. Not only are they going to have a lower penalty to their attack rolls, they're also going to have a higher armor class, so they're even harder to hit. And then Mass Healing Word is also worth calling out, as it's just like Healing Word, except it hits everyone. Utility spells is a category that I'm sort of like including things that don't fit in these other categories. We'll start with Mage Armor, which will increase the target's armor class, and you should absolutely be using this on any of your spellcasters, like after every long rest. It lasts until the next long rest and is absolutely fantastic. Command is also great. Now, Command isn't as useful in combat. Like, you can obviously make enemies flee or grovel on the ground or something like that, but the reason it's great is because you can make any enemy drop their weapon and you can steal it. So let's say there is a particular person that may have some sort of a legendary sword, or maybe there are other people in the game that have incredible weapons and you only have a limited amount of time to get them. You can just tell them to drop that sword and pick it up, and away you go. Misty Step is also great. Now, Misty Step, as a bonus action, you can move to an area that you can see. And this is great to not only avoid damage. Let's say someone's coming towards your caster and you want to like Misty Step to another location, but you can actually use it to get in range. Like if you want to locate yourself at like a certain high ground away from targets, you can use it for that as well. Tasha's Hideous Laughter is a great control spell that will make creatures lay on the ground prone and essentially laugh. I prefer this to some of the other control spells, as it's easier to get off and it doesn't require like the target to have a certain amount of like health pool. So for example, like sleep. C, invisibility, is super useful for actually seeing creatures that are invisible. This actually happens more than you will think in Baldur's Gate 3, so just having this as an option so you can see creatures when they turn invisible is important. And also the invisibility spell can also help with, say, your stealthy boys, so they can either steal stuff or actually get themselves in certain positions. Counterspell is incredible, and you should always have counterspell. So this will allow you to, as a reaction, interrupt a creature's spell. Now, what's not only benefit about this is because you can just cancel out their spell, it gives you information. So when they're, say, casting their spell, before that actual effect happens, you can see what they're casting, because it will tell you and make the decision as if you want to counter it or just let it go through, right? So if they're casting some big, massive spell that you really need to avoid, you can counter it, get rid of it, and then you can move on. Or if it's just like, you know, some piddly little ray of frost, you don't have to worry about it. Polymorph transforms a creature into a harmless sheep for a limited amount of time. This is great to get a character that is maybe a little bit stronger or larger, or just generally like a bigger threat, like how we were talking about Vicious Mockery before. You can get that creature out of the encounter for a period of time. And the last couple I'll mention is Conjure Minor Element and Element. It's great to just have some sort of a summon like this to not only take hits for you, but also deal damage out, especially if you've got a party that doesn't have a lot of like tanks in it. And Heat Metal as a druid spell is incredible. So practically every enemy, like most enemies in the game, except for certain like creatures and monstrosities, will be holding a metal weapon. You can heat up that bad boy so that they take fire damage, and they also have a chance to drop it, which is also incredible. Again, just like command drop, you could just go and steal that weapon if you want, or it also just stops them from attacking with that weapon for a period of time. But let me know your favorite spells in the comments down below. Thank you Light Me for sponsoring this video. Use my code NorZZa5 for an additional 5% off if you go choose to buy one of the Light Me Fantasy 3s on their website. Thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is NorZZa, and I hope you have a great day.